God said he named the stars, and he called them out by name.
In this study, we will be looking at the book of Revelation through the eyes of the New Jerusalem temple. Revelation chapter 18. And after these things I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and hold of every foul spirit, and cage of every unclean, hateful bird. For the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto the heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath fulfilled, fill her double. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her, when they shall see the smoke of her burning, and standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn for her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen, and purple and silk and scarlet, and all fine wood, and all manners of vessels of ivory, and all manners of vessels of most precious wood, and of brass and iron and marble, and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil, and fine flour and wheat, and beasts and sheep, and horses and chariots, and slaves and souls of men. And the fruits of thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. And the merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off from the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city, which clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by the sea, stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, What city is like unto this city? And they cast dust on their heads, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, the great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships on the sea, by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, ye holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall the great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of the harpers, and the musicians, and pipers, and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall no more at all in thee. For merchants shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were thy great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. In Revelation 18, when it says, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. We actually read the word another again as allos in another application it can mean. And the angel who comes down from heaven is always Orion. It was said in mythology, Orion was stung with the scorpion, and Orion is seen in the heavens in the position of the serpent holder, according to the myth, and then also seen in his regular pose, according to the myth. So this is also the story of the soul, the path of a soul, the part of the new year that brings us a child that's born in the beginning of the new year, and at the end of the new year, an old man. The child of Virgo was considered to be Horus, which was another name for Orion in Egypt. He was seen at the height of the heaven as Apibo, the chief to come, and the Greeks remade the Egyptian zodiac, so where Apibo was the chief to come, they showed a picture of a serpent holder, and that is supposed to be Orion being stung by the scorpion. The serpent holder is being stung by the scorpion. It appears that King David speaks of him in Psalms 118, saying, I have stung you, sure, declare the works of the, you have stung me, sure, declare the works of the Lord, and the story of his death and resurrection, when it says, the stone which the builders rejected has become the head of the corner. So this actually translates to the chief's head at the top of the corner, in that the chief is being stung and falling, and he falls to the star Myra, meaning wonderful. So when it says it is marvelous to our eyes, that same word for marvelous is wonderful, and to our eyes is to the Pleiades. So this is a story of the death and resurrection of Orion. So the Great Pyramid was built to be the story of the death and resurrection of Orion. And in myth, they put the builder of the Great Pyramid in the position of Ophiuchus and tell the story that he was the great healer. They say this is that Ophiuchus is the symbol standing for a man, the only symbol within the heavens standing for a man, and it is of Asclepius. And we would therefore see Asclepius, who is Imhotep, it says, projecting a story that's hanging from his head. And in effect, Asclepius or Imhotep was the true builder of the Great Pyramid. And the idea that's hanging from his head is the idea of the myth that is placed on this portion of the heavens in relationship to both the builder of the pyramid and to Orion. What they're telling us is that the Great Pyramid was built to house the story of Orion and his death and resurrection. That's part of the story within the heavens as angels ascend and descend. But the first part of the angels ascending and descending is the story of I saw an angel come down from heaven. And Jacob talks about that in the vision of Jacob written at Qumran. We see that Jacob said that he saw an angel come down from heaven. He also saw how the angels were dressed and how they offered sacrifices. This is the Yom Kippur sacrifices. First, you see the angel, Ophiuchus, come down from heaven to the point of Myra. Then he is raised up through the Pleiades, and that is the beginning of the offering of sacrifices. That first, at the height of the heavens, his first duty within the requirements of the Yom Kippur temple were to be to burn the ashes on the outer altar. And the sun is this thing that burns things, that the heat of its extremity, nothing is hid from the heat of its extremity. So it burns the ashes of the scorpion, which is the enemy upon the altar, and also who's upon the altar is likened to the man who is the Son of Man, that he is Ophiuchus, and Ophiuchus is likened to the Son of Man in that he's on the cloud nebula, and that's what's being said of by Daniel, that he saw a man come upon a cloud from one end of the heavens onto the other, and he came before the Ancient of Days, and the Ancient of Days is described the same as Orion. And
as the description of Orion of John the Revelator fulfills these things. He's speaking of one whose hair is white as snow, whose eyes are flames of fire, and his feet are like burnished brass coming out of the fire. These are things that John the Revelator had said, but they also are the story that Daniel talked about. Daniel talked about the Son of Man coming in the cloud before the Ancient of Days. His hair is white as snow, his eyes are flames of fire. And so this is something that is a celestial type and is being noticed in Revelation chapter 18, as it's speaking of Orion coming down from heaven with his glory, and the story that's being told of the Son of Man that he is incorporating. That when we talked about the Son of Man in Revelation 15, it wasn't just a man on a cloud, it was a man who was reaching for the neck of a serpent, which was reaching for a crown. And the Theakis, the serpent holder, is holding a serpent, which is reaching for a crown within the celestial heavens. So when we see the symbol of an angel come down from heaven, or of the Son of Man upon a cloud, all of these are symbols of Ophiuchus in the position of the height of the heavens, representing Orion upon this cloud and descending into the pit and raising up. So now we're going to see this angel in verse 2 of Revelation 18. It says, "And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and cage of every hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies." And then it says, "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be partakers, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill her double." And this can actually be seen sort of in the heavens, that we're seeing her as this queen in the celestial heavens, and that this queen, which is Cassiopeia, is holding a cup. And if we say that because in mythology her arm was supposed to reach across to be holding the cup of the Big Dipper, that she was reaching across the pole, and they pictured her arm reaching it to be holding this cup. So if we picture Cassiopeia as the symbol of Babylon or Ishtar, she's holding a cup. And when we say reward her, fill her double, there's another cup, and that's the Little Dipper. So we can all see this sort of in this area of the sky. But Revelation 18:7 says, "How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow." And that actually happened with the true Babylon in the ancient times. And now we're talking about what's going to happen to her in the earth, that was spoken of a little bit in the heavens, and now we're going on to see how it's spoken to her. And it says, "Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judges her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her, when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing far off for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold, silver, and precious stones, and pearls, and fine linen, and purple, and silk, and scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels of the most precious wood, and of brass, and iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointment, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and souls of men. And what we're having to understand is that these things happened in the past, but they're also speaking of the event of the Babylon in the future. That the Babylon has been destroyed in a sense when what happened was the war took place where soldiers burned her with fire, and that was taking place. But in the final event, Babylon still is supposed to fall into the Euphrates River. That she's going to be sinking into the river, or the river is going to be rising, and she will be underneath the river, and she will be burning. So there is a final 1 hour that this is supposed to take place. The merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn for her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. Even till day, now they're still buying the merchandise of Babylon. It's a big thing over there that this is what people go to war with, is to raid the ancient temples, and the things from the ancient temples are all over the market of auctions and so forth for the rich. So there is a merchandise of these types of thing on the earth right now, where it says the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet, fine wood, all manner of vessels of ivory. Ivory isn't something that they're modernly making. And so in order for them to have ivory be their vessels, they're talking about ancient articles that have been found. And it says all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble. These are things of the ancient times that are being found and are on the market now because of their having been found. And so that was the first part of the judgment of Babylon, is the war that took place and the soldiers, and then after that the raiders of the people of Isis and so forth, allowing all types of things to happen to Babylon. And merchants were made rich by her, both from dealing with the products being sold and dealing with the men. Of course, soldiers are souls of men as well, and they had to be fed, and they got merchants to feed them all types of food and stuff from other countries in order to bring everything there and to make it like America for the soldiers. So in one way or another, Babylon has still continued to be a merchant place for all these types of things. And so now people are going to stand far off, though, and see her burning. And when they do that, they're going to say, what city is like unto this great city? And we really haven't seen people say that in this sense yet, but they will be. It says, and they'll cast dust on their heads and cry, weeping and wailing and saying, alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. And that's a modern thing that's taking place. And then it says, for in 1 hour she is made desolate, and that will be when she will be sinking. And some people think that she'll be attacked where her from oil spills, because there's oil right underneath the city of Babylon. The oil pipes are big oil pipes underneath the city of Babylon. And so, and musicians, and of pipers, and of trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And no craftsman of whatever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the interesting thing about that is that it was used when Iraq, Babylon, the city of Babylon, built in Iraq, which is ancient country of Babylon, was built by Saddam Hussein. It was a place where they would have weddings. And so when it says the voice of harpers and musicians shall be heard no more in thee, this was actually a place for it, the weddings and so forth that they had, as it says in verse 23 here. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, and for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth.